write down what you currently believe, and then write down what you want to believe. And then make yourself a list of thoughts you want to practice believing. And then I challenge you to practice thinking them for 30 days. And if your life doesn't change, email me. We'll talk. Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andy Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Connect Method Parenting Podcast. I'm so glad you're here. And today we're going to be talking about how to believe something new without the situation changing. Maybe it's about a situation in the past that you can't change because it's in the past. For example, I was working with a mom who told me about a situation with her kids where they'd come home from school and she'd lost her cool and it had happened a few days before. And regardless of how badly she wanted to change how she'd shown up in that moment, she couldn't. And she was really beating herself up over this situation. She felt stuck and she wanted to move forward, but she couldn't believe something other than she had failed or she wasn't a good mom. So we have situations like that in the past that we realize the thoughts we have around them are keeping us stuck from moving forward, from feeling better, from doing the job we want to do as a parent in the way we respect. We're stuck because we're beating ourselves up, we're frustrated, we're upset. So we want a better thought process about that past thought so that we can learn and grow from the situation, because we realize that the negative thought cycle that we're in is keeping us from moving forward, from growing, from learning, from doing better next time because we feel so bad. I was caught in this thought cycle pretty much constantly when I first started parenting. That first decade, a little shy of a decade, but by the time my oldest was 8, I realized that this is where I lived. And I thought that beating myself up would get me to the next step, but it didn't. It kept me stuck. So I work with a lot of parents who, because I've told them this, because they sense it themselves, they come to me and they realize that they're stuck in the past and they want a new thought because they know that that is the ticket to a better future, but they don't know how to do that without denying, or what's another word for it? It's that they're feeling as if they let go of this negative cycle, this negative story, that beating themselves up about the past, that they're not taking accountability or ownership for the past. And that's not the case at all. So there's situations in the past like that where we want to get into a better thought process about them so we can learn and grow from the situation. And this requires a new way of thinking or processing the situation so that our nervous system can switch from sympathetic, which is the nervous system state where we're in fight or flight, where we're activated, to parasympathetic, which is that restful state, that the calm state where we can think at our highest level. And we have situations that we know are going to happen in the future, like bedtime tonight. Hello, bedtime happens every night. And if our thought process about bedtime is I'm dreading bedtime, or bedtime is going to be a fight tonight, or I don't want to do bedtime, I don't like bedtime, my kids are bad at bedtime, then that's going to set us up for a frustrating, hard bedtime. So we know the thought's not helping us show up better, but we can't get rid of it because it feels like we're just stating the truth. And not only do I hear this all of the time in my Connect Method Parenting Group League, I thought these thoughts pretty much constantly when my kids were little. And it took me a while to figure out how to get out of them. And I needed to get out of them so that I could create something different. And that's what I've worked through with so many parents who are in the same boat. So I get asked, how do I believe something new or change my thoughts a lot? And I totally get it. Parents will say to me, I understand how to do the steer. And the steer, by the way, is this amazing awareness tool that we use inside of League all of the time. I explain how to do it or break apart the steer in the first or second episode, maybe the third. It's in one of the first 3 episodes. So if you're not sure what I'm talking about, you've never heard me talk about steer before or explain it, then go back and listen to one of those first episodes. Like I said, it's one of the first 3, and learn how to do the steer, because you're going to want to be able to use that tool to dive into what we're talking about today. Or better yet, join me for the next round of the pivot. We're going to dive in it together. You're going to get to be a master at it. You're going to be able to use this amazing tool that will help you have so much awareness and shift your thoughts. So that's starting, if you're listening to this live, October 7th. So you can pop into that. It's 8 weeks. It's incredible. moms are getting 200% plus improvement on listening, on awareness, on confidence, on so many things. So go check that out, cmp.works/pivot. But basically, the steer, it breaks down life so that you can see how your thoughts create your emotions that drive you to take action or inaction and ultimately create the results you have in your life. So parents will come to me and say, I get it. The steer works. By the way, if you're in league, either in pivot or mastery, listen up, because you're going to be able to take this to a deeper level because you have practiced doing steers and pieces so many times. So I want you to listen to what I'm talking about today and go into league, go into the app and deep dive on this stuff we're talking about today. So if you're not in league, listen up, because what I'm talking about today is still going to be very helpful as you shift your parenting. So parents will come to me and they'll say, I totally love steer. I love how it shows me what I'm thinking in certain situations. I can evaluate what I thought in the past. It helps me visualize a new way of being in the future. I understand my thoughts, whether they're conscious or subconscious, are creating my emotions. I understand that my thoughts drive my actions that ultimately create my results. They see the whole equation, which is very, very important. And they'll say to me, even though I have all of that awareness, I'm still struggling to believe something awesome or something productive about myself as a parent or about my kids. And they know that they need to get there. They need to have a belief that resonates, that feels true if they want awesome things to happen in their life with their kids. Because thoughts that feel icky, that feel not powerful, will create that life. Our actions are flavored by the emotions that we have, and the emotions we have are created by the belief system that we have, the thoughts we have. And so it is simple. It is as simple as that, creating a new thought around a situation, whether it be bedtime, the teenager's attitude, the way homework goes down or doesn't go down, would, if believed and embodied, would create a different emotional experience inside of our body and a different set of actions and a totally different set of results. However, even though it's so simple, and I really do think that it fundamentally, everything is very simple, that doesn't mean it's easy. But I do believe more often than not, things are simpler than we initially think they are. Sometimes we want to keep things complicated because our nervous system doesn't want us to change. And when we keep things complicated, when it feels as if this new way of being is not going to work for us, or we can't believe it, or I don't even know what to think instead, it keeps us where we are, which on a conscious level, from our most intentional place, we don't want to stay where we are. But from our subconscious place, from our nervous system point of view, staying where we are is linked to survival, linked to safety. We can't overlook this. This part of us that is perhaps avoiding things, making things more complicated, is a very valid part of us. This part of our nervous system that wants to keep stories that perhaps aren't serving us, thoughts about our kids, thoughts about ourselves that aren't amazing. If I have a thought about myself that I don't know how to do this, I'm impatient, or a thought about my kids, they're rude, they're unkind, they're really difficult, they're hard, even though those thoughts will never lead to the results I want, the fact that I've thought them for months or years has told my nervous system that this thought is linked with more survival, more days of living. And so in order to preserve our existence here, it likes to keep things the same. It feels more safe. So I want us to really look at this, because even though, yes, on one hand, it really does boil down to us truly believing something new about us or our kids or a situation, and that will change our whole life. On the other hand, getting to the place where we can actually believe that does require kindness towards our nervous system. And we need to understand that our nervous system is trying to keep us alive. It's a system that is really important, and I'm very grateful for my nervous system. However, it can get in the way of us changing because of this mechanism it has to hold on to the past, because we've survived the past, so the past equals safety. So when we want to believe a new thought and create new results in our life, we have to be aware of the self-preservation system that our nervous system has in place and work with it, not against it. So for me and many of the parents I work with, making things complicated is a way of avoiding the discomfort or lack of safety our nervous system so desperately wants to avoid. So why do we avoid discomfort? One reason, like I've said, is because the discomfort is coming from something that is new or unfamiliar, and to our nervous system that is read as danger, death, do not enter, do not do this. Familiar is the golden ticket that it wants to keep cashing in on. It wants to keep going down the path, even if that path is not creating the results we want. So if we've yelled at our kids, it wants to keep doing that. Even if it doesn't feel good, even if the outcome isn't great, we didn't die. And by not dying, which is the priority, it wants to repeat the actions. So complicating things, procrastinating things, overthinking things can give us a reason to not take action, to stay put. And the nervous system thinks that's a good thing. Staying the same is all that in a bag of chips. Do they still say that? I have no idea if they still say that. That's definitely dating me. If you're in your 40s, like me, maybe you remember that saying. But basically, we do complicated things sometimes because our nervous system thinks it's a good idea. But once we become conscious of this, we can start working on it. Recently in office hours, a mom jumped on and wanted to work on a situation that had happened the previous week that was really traumatic for her. One of her kids had left and she couldn't find him for a period of time. Everything was fine. They found him. And that was what was really confusing for her, is nothing had gone wrong. He wasn't in any danger at any point when she wasn't sure where he was. He was hiding in the house. They found him just fine. She'd done everything right. And she said to me, why am I still feeling traumatized, triggered, nervous, alarmed? And it's been a week. She was really wise. She said, I know this is emotions that are trapped in my body that I need to feel, which is absolutely right. It reminded me of something that had happened almost 16 years ago. One of my kids went missing, and same thing. Searching, so much fear, so much panic, called all the people in. And eventually we found him asleep. We had these really long curtains in my master bedroom, and he wasn't very big, 3 or 4 at the time. And he had just fallen asleep. I think the kids had been playing. I had been doing something. And, when I went to kind of do a count of all the kids, I just couldn't find him. And he had wandered into my room, fallen asleep, and you could not see him. You could not see him without the curtains being completely moved. And I hadn't looked there for 10 minutes. I kept looking in my bedroom. I didn't realize there was enough space even behind the curtains for someone to lay. And somehow we found him. And the emotional result of that, the trauma, the trigger, it lasted for years. I didn't know how to fully process the emotions. I didn't know how to believe something new. I was spinning in my thoughts about my ability as a mother, in near constant separation triggered pursuit with my kids, always wanting to know where they were, trying to control everything so that no harm befell anyone, which is good to a degree until it becomes dysfunctional and neurotic. My brain tends to want to function already just by default in more of an alarmed / anxiety, worry, blame state. And at the time, I didn't have the tools to know how to love that part of my brain that was wanting to go into a high level of alarm and anxiety and worry and blame. I didn't know how to love it. I didn't know how to navigate it. I didn't know how to accept it and allow it to be felt and redirect it towards something more useful. So I stayed spinning. And in a similar way, this amazing mom was presenting the same story for me. The difference was she understood what was going on, unlike I did back then. And so we broke it down. And I want to break it down for all of you today because there's some steps to going from cognitively knowing, hey, it's okay that this experience happened, that my child got lost, that I got really nervous and alarmed, maybe frustrated, panicky, maybe I felt terror. Knowing that cognitively, which she was so on point, she knew cognitively where she was, but she wasn't sure how to unravel it all to let her body fully metabolize the emotions that she felt in that experience and ultimately believe something new about herself so that moving forward, she could show up better. And so that she wasn't in a state of panic all the time. She said ever since that experience for the last week or week and a half, she had felt more on edge, more triggered, more alarmed, more worried. And so she knew it wasn't beneficial. She wasn't sure what to do. So we're going to break it all down today. After that conversation with her, I was inspired to come create this episode because I wanted to break this down for you all and help you get started on how to do this work for yourself. I really wish that I had known these things back when I was struggling. And synchronicities are so cool because as I was outlining this episode, my nervous system literally tried to have a coup and take over my logical brain and send me into an anxiety-filled thought cycle, which is not super surprising because my brain loves to jump into the anxiety pool as much as possible. It's so quiet for the most part now, but if I'm in a new situation, if I have a new set of stresses that I haven't dealt with as much, it tries to come right back in. So thank goodness I know how to do this. And it was really perfect because I'm literally writing this outline and this whole experience happened. So let me explain what happened. We're doing something that I'm not super comfortable or familiar with right now. And when I was typing up this outline, we were on a train going from Amsterdam to Prague. In total, I think door to door, it was a 12-hour day. And I'm so excited we're here. But it's really been fascinating that this experience, which has taken us 3 years to pull off and required a lot of steps. In hindsight, I can just see how it all lined up. We sold our house in Arizona. We moved to in the Phoenix area. We sold everything we owned, basically moved to this tiny little cabin in the woods and started preparing for more travel. I just love traveling, kind of obsessed. And this year, my 5th child would be a senior in high school or is a senior in high school. And my 6th child is a junior in high school. They just had birthdays this summer, 16 and 17. So much to my delight, they opted out of traditional school and we got them all lined up for online stuff and we're able to plan this study abroad where they're learning and then we're going to the places. It's crazy. I can't believe we're pulling it off. And my husband and I both work remote. I love that I can teach Connect with the Parenting anywhere in the world is my mission. It's a big part of my life next to being a mom and a parent. One of the most important things that I'm doing in this world. And my husband's obsessed with software and programming. And so he's able to work remote. So he's syncing up late into the night, sometimes with meetings back in Arizona, but it's all working out. So we are somehow pulling this off and we're on this train. And as Americans, we don't really know how to use public transportation at all. Well, maybe if we were East Coasters, we would. I know people who live in New York can use the metro like nobody's business, but in the West, we don't have great public transportation, and I haven't used it much at all. So when we decided to book this trip and we realized in order to just be as efficient with our finances as possible, we weren't going to rent a car. We didn't need to. So we booked these trains to get from place A to place B. We use local public transportation when we're in cities. So we get on this train Tuesday morning from Amsterdam to Prague. And when we get to the station, we realize there's only 2 seat assignments and there's more than 2 of us. So we don't know what to do. We thought maybe it had just been a mistake, but we didn't really figure it out until we got onto the train. And we realized after the train was moving and people had started sitting down, how you got seats if you weren't assigned a seat, which I don't know why we weren't all assigned, but we weren't. So we had 2 assigned seats and then the rest of us had to figure out where to sit. And once we talked to somebody, they explained the seats with no light lit up on them that didn't have, didn't indicate like the destination, and those were available. Well, by the time we figured this out, there's a ton of people on the train. And so my girls all find seats and they're good seats and they're happy with them and they don't want to move. And they find seats on one coach or one, what do you call it? Just one train section. I don't know what to call it. And I have to find a seat in another section. So I'm not even on the same, I can't see them. I'm on the same section of the train of them. And my brain, even though I have no reason to think this, my brain instantly starts going down the path that my girls are going to be abducted, which makes no logical sense other than I watched this movie with Liam Neeson called Taken, I believe that's the name of it. And I don't even know when it came out, probably 2 decades ago, where his daughter goes to Europe and gets abducted. And so my brain has this random connection. I think of the movie as I'm sitting on the train. I haven't thought of the movie in years. And my brain is wanting me to go into a full-fledged freak out. So I call my oldest, my 22-year-old, on WhatsApp, because that's what we're using now. WhatsApp is like this whole new experience. I've used it here or there, but it's our primary mode of talking now since we're trying to figure out how to navigate all of that now that we're not in the country. And so I call Megan just maybe 15 minutes into the trip to make sure everyone was okay. They were all fine. And I tried to sit and relax and my brain just wouldn't be still. So I called her again and she was like, "Mom, we're fine." And then I just realized that my work wasn't to keep calling Megan. My work was to sit in my beliefs. So I'm writing this outline, thinking about this, I close the laptop and I begin the work that I'm going to talk to you about right now. So I just had to smile that as I was preparing this outline to record today, my brain literally reverted back to an old anxiety-based panic story, which I'm going to be able to use today to show you how to unpack a situation when you want to believe something different about it. Okay? So let's circle back to the mom whose story really led me to start writing this episode. My own story with my now, 21, 22-year-old Cooper, who was 3 or 4 at the time and fell asleep behind a curtain in my master bedroom. And then also me thinking about my girls getting abducted on the train earlier this week. So I have these 3 experiences where 2 are personal and 1 is with a mom in league, where we have situations where we initially have a story or belief around it that we know does not serve us. So on the call with this mom, she said something like, even though logically I know I don't need to get so triggered, I know it doesn't help me. I'm feeling the panic so strong and the fear in similar situations or in situations that aren't even that similar, but my brain wants to make them similar. And so now I'm freaking out and I don't know what to do. She was so wise. She was able to see that the solution was feeling her emotions. Now remember, there's a difference between emotions and feelings. Emotions are the unconscious release of a chemical based on a perception we have, based on a thought that we have, whether that's a conscious thought or a subconscious thought around a situation. And the feeling is the conscious awareness when we allow ourselves to have the experience, to feel the sensations in our body, to allow ourselves to be fully present to the emotion, really to the thought as well, so that we can process it. Our sympathetic nervous system jumps in and wants to help us with a situation that's too much to bear. But then it's supposed to allow us to go into that fight or flight, feel the frustration, feel the pursuit, to try to close the gap between where we are and where we want to be, or the alarm, move us to caution, and then release and metabolize those emotions out once the threat is over. And they've shown this in toddler tears, where when a toddler goes into fight or flight, which typically shows up as being mad, the composition of the tears when they're mad is very different than the composition of the tears when they release and the emotions are felt, the emotions are metabolized, and they drop back into parasympathetic. In the parasympathetic state, the tears after that mad to sad trip have the chemicals that would have put them into fight or flight. So the threat is over, it's resolved. This is how it's supposed to work. It's great when it works this way. So it's supposed to metabolize after the event is over. The problem is when we don't get back to parasympathetic, when we don't have a resolution of our emotions, which is exactly what she was saying. She was saying, hey, I realize that I'm not back to calm. I haven't resolved this. I haven't fully felt these emotions. I don't feel safe around this situation at an emotional level, even though cognitively I get it. And the reason we get stuck in this foul frustration or this oversensitive alarm or separation triggered pursuit is because we have more frustration, but we aren't feeling the frustration. So more frustration, less feeling. In America and so many other countries, thank goodness, we have the freedom to believe whatever we want and to express that belief in any way we want. And it's also our right as a human being to believe and to choose what we want to believe. So we have this in our culture, this freedom. My family and I visited the Anne Frank house in Prague when we were there earlier this week. My girls had read The Diary of Anne Frank to prepare. Highly recommended if you haven't read that book. They also watched this really great miniseries called Meep. I think they watched it on Amazon Prime. I'm not sure who made it, but they loved it. And it prepared them to experience her house and sit in the reality of what was going on back then. And after walking through the house, we all got chatting about how hard it was for us to believe that Hitler was able to get enough Germans to support him in his belief system that Jews weren't equal to them, and eventually convince them that they deserved to die. Now, I know not all Germans realized that they were killing the Jews, but they definitely all got behind this idea that Jews didn't deserve to be treated like they were treated. And in the presentation we watched, she reminded us how the Jews, from Hitler's perspective, were part of the reason they'd lost World War I. And Germany at the time was having to pay retribution, or I think that's what they called it, money back to other European countries for the cost of the war. So the economy was bad, and he was able to capitalize on that and get these, I think, wonderful people to believe something really terrible, to believe something new. And we were talking about how kids being raised by parents who believed that Jews weren't equal to them made it really likely that they would adopt the beliefs as well. We even talked about the fact that if they had been raised during that time and had been inundated by the beliefs that were propagated by the Nazi Party and had parents who believed it, and the whole society made it hard not to believe, how most likely they would have adopted that belief as well, which they were horrified by. But we talked about this a lot the couple of days after we visited the Anne Frank house, that when you're raised believing a certain thing, and in this case, that you were somehow superior to a Jewish person, and it could go in so many ways, that men are better than women, that depending on your skin color, you're better than someone else, or your political party is better than someone else. There's so many ways that we can believe a certain thing, or that we're taught to believe certain things. And a lot of these beliefs that are, in retrospect, especially as, we're looking at World War II and what happened, we're like, that was a terrible belief. Why would you believe that? A lot of times in the moment, these beliefs, they go unquestioned. So I think of some of the children and how their beliefs were formed so young, and how they were taught at such a young age to believe certain things. And never did anyone come to them and say, hey, do you want to question that belief? I'm not sure that belief makes sense. They just went with it. And pausing and reflecting on this got us thinking about our biases. We all have biases. That's the truth. Every human has a bias, but the more intimately we explore the situation, the belief, the bias, the person that we might have that bias against, it's hard to stay so black and white in our thinking. If you raise someone from a very young age to believe they're not good enough, they're not capable, they're not lovable, they're not worthy unless they do X, Y, Z, that's what they grow up believing. So we can look at the beliefs that we were taught as we grew up, and everyone has a set of beliefs they were taught growing up. Some are going to be fantastic, some you're going to want to question. And I would say that the adults, for the most part, that have, and society for the most part, that have taught us these beliefs, come by it honestly. Like, they're trying to help us have. And I would say that whether we've inherited these beliefs from parents or adults in our life, teachers, society, wherever we've inherited them from, I believe most of the time, and you might argue, and I would probably argue too, that maybe there's occasions where that's not the case, but I think most of the time, if we exclude extreme situations, these beliefs are handed down to us because the people in our lives care about us, and they're trying to teach us something that they feel like will be useful. One of the things that my mother always told me was I was athletic, I was a hard worker, and a natural leader. And so she was always thanking me for helping around the house. She was making sure I had opportunities to build my athleticism. I did a lot of gymnastics, so it was a big sacrifice for them to get me to those lessons and pay for those lessons, and she made sure they happened. She also let me know what a great big sister I was. I'm the oldest of 7, and she was very grateful and let me know how much she appreciated that. And so I grew up believing those things about myself. I'm athletic, I'm hardworking, I'm a great leader. And unintentionally, some of the things that I learned growing up that, again, well-meaning and I got these from society, I got these from, my family, I've got these from just living in America, just that I needed to perform. My grades in school mattered. The choices I made a difference in my worthiness. And I don't know that anybody ever said to me, hey, if you mess up, you're not going to be very worthy. I don't think anybody did. Or if you don't get good grades, you're not smart. I don't remember my parents ever saying that. But just because of the way the school system was set up, I started thinking of myself as not smart if I didn't do well. I have this memory in fourth grade, Mrs. Schaefer. I absolutely loved Mrs. Schaefer, and dark, short hair. We were in a portable out in the kind of the outer end of the school property. Loved her. But one day in math, she had me, I messed up. I didn't get something right. And so she had me go up to the chalkboard and put the problem on the board, and I got it wrong. And I know, because I love Mrs. Schaefer, I know she never, ever would have done anything to purposely embarrass me, but I got so embarrassed. I got so embarrassed about how I had messed up in front of everybody, and I believed that I was not good at math. And it's still something that creeps up. It's still something that I have to be onto myself, because I have a belief I'm not good at math. And it was long division or fractions. I don't even remember what it was, but I can totally do that math. It's not a problem. So we have these situations in our life that have taught us belief systems and sometimes whole belief frameworks. And I do believe that for the most part, we inherit these belief systems from a society or a parent or a teacher who's very caring, trying to help us, not trying to hurt us. And even though that's the case, we can take belief systems or thoughts and interpret them in a way that do hurt us, that do prevent us from fulfilling our potential. But here's the thing. All of us get all of them. And now that we're adults, we can untangle them. We can start to choose. We believe what we were taught as children because that's how our brains work. It filters right in. We believe from those who have raised us, who we trust, to help us be informed of how this world works. We have to rely on teachers to teach us about the world, and parents and friends and family members. And so we're going to inherit things that are really fantastic, like you're hardworking, athletic, a natural leader. And we're going to inherit things that aren't as helpful because of how we've interpreted it. For example, you're not good at math. I also have one that a little bit of a message I got, whether it was intended to be sent or not. I received a message that you're too much. I was really loud. I like to be the center of attention growing up. I would write, direct, and star in my own plays every summer with my cousins, and I was very expressive. And I had people tell me, that's too much. And so I received that, and for a long time felt as if I needed to quiet part of myself. And now that we're all adults, we have these belief systems, all sorts of beliefs. We're going to unpack a lot. So far we've covered the belief system that if I'm not in the same train car as my children, they might be abducted. And that's a sub thought of just a lack of safety around, being in an unknown situation. I'm not a good mom, which is what the mom in office hours had come to the conclusion in her cognitive brain. I'm not a good mom because my child, wasn't in my presence for a few minutes and I didn't know where he was. So we have all of these beliefs: good, helpful, productive, not helpful. And I want us to start thinking about, what do we think about ourselves? What do you believe? Now, I don't know why it is, but I have found that most of us believe in really negative things. It's almost like our brains are kind of genetically programmed to go negative. Have you found that for yourselves? I was doing an office hours call inside of League not too long ago, and whatever we were talking about, I don't remember the specifics, but I was telling them that when I wake up in the morning, I have had, and it was more recently before we made this huge transition to come over to Europe for a few months, I was having so much anxiety, so many negative thoughts. And my brain likes to go there. It does like to dwell in the negativity. I don't know if it's more than anyone else's, but it definitely isn't. But it had amped up. It had amped up right before this. And so I was waking up in the middle of the night, and my brain was wanting to obsess over all of the things I needed to do, all of the things I was forgetting to do, all of the things I had messed up on, all the things I had said that I didn't mean, or that I, wish I would have said, or just, it was nonstop. It was nonstop. I was staying in this spinning cycle until I would become consciously aware of it. And I know that I love myself. I know that I believe in my value really deeply. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. But even though I believe that, and I know I'm trying to show up as a good mom, and I know I make mistakes and I'm iterating and learning from them, my brain still offers negative thoughts sometimes. And because we were getting ready to do something new, I think it just amped up some alarm, some worry, some caution that my brain wanted to put me into because of so many new things that I was confronted with at the time. And so that is something that happens is when we're in a new situation, when our child grows, when they start having different behavior, if we're sick, if money becomes stressful, then our brain, that negative part of the brain, I should say, finds that as a weakness or as an opening to say, hey, let's see if we can get her to water this story, to grow this part of her internal garden that is negative. So that's what was happening. And I was sharing this with them and also saying, you can have these beliefs about yourself that creep in. They're not necessarily the primary belief. You can know simultaneously, I love myself. I believe in myself deeply, but it doesn't necessarily prevent you from waking up spinning sometimes, especially if situations have changed or there's anticipation of something changing in the future. I'm always kind of baffled by my thoughts. And I've been studying attachment theory. I've been doing all this work in coaching, CBT, nervous system, trauma processing, somatic work, art, drawing, play therapy for so long. I've been doing this. I've been diving into this. And I've come to the conclusion that I do not determine my worth, that my worth has already been decided. I'm here on the planet. And the universe, intelligence, source, God, Allah, whatever you want to call it, whatever divinity or power that you would subscribe to, the reason that we're all able to exist on this planet, that incredible power that has created every magnificent, beautiful, glorious thing that's on this planet also created me, and it created you for a reason. It didn't make a mistake. I didn't create me. I was given this life. And the essence of me, I believe as a result of that, is worthy, period, not negotiable. Now, I'm not saying I don't have any cause and effect results that come because of the decisions I make or that other people make, but the inherent goodness, the worthiness, the value of each human is there regardless. And I feel that so deeply. I believe that so deeply. And so for me to question my worth as an essence of this universe, or even as a human being in my belief system, is not even my right to do. And to question whether the body I have is worthy, or the face I have, or the toes I have, or the height I am, all of which I had no control over, really is not really worth any of my time questioning. That's kind of where I come from. And I will tell you, I've taught this to so many parents, and it is such an incredible sense of relief and freedom to know that questioning your worth is like questioning if the sky is blue. There's really no reason to do it. There's really no reason to put your energy behind something like that because it's already been decided. It's a fact. It just is. It doesn't negate us from cause and effect. It doesn't negate us from the natural consequences of our choices. But our worth is real. So questioning it, you never look back at a baby that's born and question that baby's worth. Is it worthy to be born into the world? Is it worthy to have life? Is its body good enough? It just is. And we were all that way. And at some point we've decided that, we should question whether we're good enough. You just are. You are good enough, period. Right? So I really do believe that. I believe it in the deepest part of myself, but still sometimes I wake up with these crazy thoughts that question my worth, that cause me to be anxious, or a better word I believe is alarmed, to feel frustrated, to judge myself, to beat myself up. These thoughts say that I should be better than I am, that I should be different than I am at my level of being. Now, do I want to continue to improve? Do I want to be more patient, more regulated with my kids? Absolutely. I will never be able to become more patient or more regulated or more compassionate or more empathetic by judging my worth. It will never be the place from which that result will spring from. And so I'm able now to look at that thinking and see it for what it is. It's just my brain thinking thoughts. It's nothing to do with my worth. If I think I'm unworthy, it doesn't mean I am. Now, you can wrap your mind around that. You're all set. Just because you're thinking something, you're thinking you're unworthy, doesn't make it true. If you think you're fat or you're ugly or unaccomplished or not good enough doesn't mean you are, okay? What is true for you will be what you believe to be true. And your life will reflect what you believe. So you get to believe whatever you want. You get to believe that you are good enough, or you get to believe that you're not good enough. Nobody can take that away from you. No matter whether you're in captivity, no matter if someone takes all your rights away, you still have control over what you want to think or believe. Okay? Now, the only exception I would say to that rule is if you're being brainwashed and tortured in a way where someone has control over your brain, which is possible. But in most instances, that's not happening to us. Most of us are just brainwashing ourselves with negative thoughts. So the question then becomes, what do I want to believe and how do you believe it? Okay. So there's 3 steps. The first step is you have to find out what you believe now. What do you believe about yourself? What do you believe about your kids? What do you believe about your parenting? What do you believe about your messy house? What do you believe about your life? What do you believe about the people in your life? What do you believe about your past? What do you believe about your capacity in your future? Those beliefs that you have are so important. Do you know why? Because they will determine your results. Your thoughts that you keep thinking over and over and over again are your beliefs. A belief is just a thought you keep on thinking. So your thoughts, your beliefs, they're going to determine how you feel about your life. They will determine what you do. They will ultimately determine your results. So any of you thinking that you don't need to know what you believe, it's one of the most important things you need to know. I can look at your beliefs right now. We could sit here, we could talk about your beliefs, and you name them for me. And if I looked them over, I could tell you what your future was going to be like if you kept believing those thoughts. So I was talking to a mom who said, Andy, you don't get it. I just don't have as much resolve as you have. I don't have as much commitment as you have. So I'm not going to get the same results you have. I can't. It's not possible. And I said to her, but your belief that you don't have commitment, your belief that you don't have resolve, that's what's going to create your results. It's not because you don't have the ability. You have the same amount of ability to commit to something as I do. You have the same amount of ability to have resolve as I do. Your belief that you're not where I am, that's what's going to be preventing you from creating what you want. So you won't get your results that you want because you won't follow through on the feeling and the action. So if she believes I'm not as committed as Andy, I'm not as capable as Andy, what will happen is her actions will be less committed, which means she won't get the results she wants. If she believed I'm committed, I do have resolve, then her feeling would be determination and commitment, and she would take action from that place and create a result that would blow her mind. But in this instance, when I'm talking to her, she can't see that the thought, I don't have as much commitment as you do, is a thought. She thinks it's just an observation, it's just the facts. Now, that's the secret to the universe right there, right? Separating what you believe from the facts. What you think about what is possible versus what is actually possible. Your thoughts from facts. And I did say to her, I said, if you took the same actions I took, we were talking about dropping resistant thoughts to her kid's behavior. And I said, if you stopped making your child's off-track behavior mean something negative about him, negative about you, you would have a different result. And she said, yeah, I think you're right. But I don't think that I can stop making my child's off-track behavior not mean he's rude or unkind or going to end up with a lot of problems. I don't think I can commit to that. I don't think I'm capable of that. I'm just not where you are. That's what she said to me. That thought right there is just a thought, but that thought is going to determine her result. Now, if she had told me that even though she didn't believe it right now, she was bound and determined, nothing was going to stop her until she dropped the resistance to her child's behavior and that she would follow through on all of the assignments that I gave her. And she was going to get to the point, at some point, she was determined, she wasn't going to stop till she got there, that she was going to get to the point where her son's behavior didn't mean something negative about her or him, didn't mean anything about his future, didn't mean anything about his past, didn't mean anything negative about her. It was just information. I suggest thinking thoughts like, he's struggling right now, he's doing the best he can in this moment, this behavior is just information. If she committed to figuring out how to believe those thoughts, which is all of the steps we're talking about in today's podcast, and followed through and did the repetition and the work and got to the place where she believed those thoughts. And even if there were bridge thoughts, which I highly recommend, even the bridge thoughts would have changed her results. So even if in between he's rude to he's struggling, there was a bridge thought of, I'm learning to believe he's not rude. That might be a great first bridge thought. I'm learning to believe he's struggling. I'm learning to believe this behavior is just information. I'm learning to believe he's doing the best he can in this moment. Every step towards less resistance would create a different result, because that result would be dictated by the actions she was taking. That's how it works. But she didn't recognize that her thought, I'm not capable, I don't know how to do this, it seems too hard to believe or far-fetched that his behavior doesn't mean he's rude or doesn't mean he's going to have a hard future. That inability to believe that that's just a belief was keeping her stuck. She thought she was just making an observation. So step 1, you have to find out what you believe right now. Do you believe your child's behavior is information, or that he's doing his best in this moment? Do you believe you're capable of figuring out the answer to what's going on? Or, as I like to say, do you believe that you are the solution? Do you believe that connection, not correction, is the answer? Do you believe that all emotions are welcome? Do you believe that there's always a reason at the nervous system level for the behavior that's coming out? Do you believe the solution lies before, not after, the off-track behavior occurs? Do you believe that it's possible for you to become the parent you've dreamed of becoming? You have to know it. If you don't believe it, you won't create it. What you do believe is what you will create. So if you believe that you are destined to mess up with your parenting, or that you already have messed up with your parenting, if you believe you're a yeller, you're not going to be able to change, if you believe that your relationship with your teen is beyond repair, if you believe you're anxious and tense, and that's just who you're always going to be, there's no way around it, then that's exactly what you're going to create, because there's no other result that you can create. Your beliefs create your results. So if you believe that you can do something, you'll do it. When I say believe, I mean deeply believe. Your nervous system is on board with the belief. But if you don't believe you can do something, you absolutely won't do it. That's just the way it works. It's just the truth. If I believe that I can create a podcast that will help people, then I'm going to create a podcast that will help people. But if I don't believe that I can do that, then I won't create a podcast. I won't even record it. I won't even send it out into the world. So I have to decide what I want to believe. If I can believe I can connect with my children, even when there's off-track behavior, even when they're struggling, even when they're at their worst, I'm going to figure out how to do it. So step 1, find out what you believe. Step 2, decide what you want to believe. Step 3, practice, 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 practice. We need repetition more than anything else. Okay, so here's how I recommend that you do that. You write down all of your current beliefs about parenting. Yep. Pause this episode right now. Write them all down. You'll thank me later, and then come back. If you're in League, either in Mastery or Pivot, share your list with me inside of the group. We're launching discussion groups inside of our app that are going to look and feel like a Facebook group, but they're private. So much better. So jump into the app, share your list, and we'll be able to review it. I'll pop in and respond and see what your lists are. So write down all of the thoughts you're having about your parenting, about your child, about yourself, about their behavior, about your thoughts. Okay? So you have your marching orders. Can't wait to see them. If you're not in League, totally fine. Write your list. Write your list of all the thoughts you currently believe. I was working with one of my most beloved one-on-one clients, and I had her send me this list about her parenting. And she sent me the list via email, and I looked at the thoughts, and as I was reading through them, I thought, wow, this is very similar to what my list would have looked like. And how in the world, when we have such negative thoughts about ourselves, are we ever going to be able to become the parent we want to become? When we have thoughts that are painful and blaming and negative, thoughts that are filled with a lack of power, a lack of hope, we will not be able to create the life we want. But we have to see them. And so when you're able to see your thoughts, you make this list, all the thoughts you think about yourself, your parenting, your kids, their behavior, your behavior, whatever you want to dump, just all of them down. I want you to look at these beliefs and realize that these beliefs are creating the experience you're having with yourself, with your parenting, with your child. It's not my child causing me to act the way I'm acting. It's not my child's fault that I'm losing my cool, that I'm frustrated with the state of their room, that we're having a tug of war every day. It's time to do homework. It's my perception, my thoughts, my beliefs about those things that's creating this. And that's kind of a bummer to find out initially, right? You're like, oh, shoot, because now we have to take responsibility. But on the other hand, it's the best news ever because you have control over this. You can work with this. So have a look at what you believe. And then what I recommend you do is you run some steers on a few of those thoughts. And if you're in league, do some pieces, the whole process. If you're not in league, the first 3 episodes are going to teach you how to do steer. So go back and listen to those and have a really deep look at how those thoughts are creating and affecting your life. So for example, if you believe that your child is lazy and not doing what he's supposed to be doing, that's a thought. That's a belief. My child is lazy and not doing what he's supposed to be doing. Got it? And how do you feel when you think my child is lazy and not doing what he's supposed to be doing? Probably feel upset or sad or frustrated or angry or full of despair. And then how do you act towards your child? Maybe you withdraw, you pull away, or maybe you start giving consequences for not getting his homework done or his chores done. Maybe you lecture or have a little internal conversation with yourself about how his behavior is making your life so hard. And as a result, of course, your child is going to feel that resentment or frustration you have inside of you. You can't hide it. You can't pretend something on the outside. I'm calm on the outside, but fuming on the inside. Well, your kids see right through that. So maybe they pull away, put up their defenses. If you do this little dance of frustration with him long enough, your relationship is going to get weaker, not stronger. His desire to listen to you will decrease, not increase. Partly because he's getting used to going into fight or flight around you, and partly because he's getting more and more defended around the things he wants, meaning he's caring less and less about things. If you're just going to take this away and take this away and take this away, then eventually his sympathetic nervous system tells him to not care about that thing. So the consequences and rewards begin to work less and less. So you will have less influence over him. He cares less and less about what you think, and it creates a spiral. Do you see how you are playing a part in this situation where your child is lazy and not doing all the things you think he should be doing? So looking at the effect of your thoughts by running some steers and seeing the effect of those thoughts inside the steer is really powerful. The next thing you're going to do is a rampage of positivity. So you're going to take that list of thoughts that you've written down about a particular child or a situation or an example. Those thoughts are all negative. You're going to counter those thoughts with a positive version of each one of them. So I did a thought download this morning and I had a lot of negative thoughts. And then I did a couple of steers, and then I did a rampage of positive thoughts to counteract them. So for example, I had the thought, I don't know if I can do it. And I changed that thought to, I am doing this no matter what. I had the thought, I want to be a better mom. And I switched that to, I'm an amazing mom and I'm getting better every day. So when you're coming up with the new thoughts and when you're doing these rampages of positivity, you have to make sure that these new thoughts are thoughts that you believe about yourself, that you believe about your life and your kids. That's really important. Some of my other thoughts were, I am figuring out how to make things work. This is my life and I'm very capable and strong. My body is awesome. I'm great at creating a routine no matter what's happening in my life. This doesn't need to be easier. I have the capacity to feel any emotion. I've got this. Liking myself is available for me to think and worth the effort to think it. This next year with my kids is going to be magical. This is working so well. Such an awesome tool, right? So instead of having all these negative thoughts about my kids, my life, myself, my parenting, you switch it all around and make all the thoughts positive. I also made sure all of the thoughts were ones that I could really believe. I call this my intentional belief creation cycle. So to recap, step 1, you're going to become aware of what you're believing and then decide what you want to believe instead. Now, people will say to me, okay, I love this. Here's what I want to believe. I've got this. My kid's behavior is not a problem, and I'm not triggered when my kids are throwing a fit. So how do I believe it? Now, remember, what was my definition of a belief? A belief is a thought you keep on thinking. So if your brain wants to go to the thought, I don't know if I can do this, which I mean, how many times a day do you guys think that thought? I swear, lately, I have been offered that thought by my crazy brain over and over, some version of that. You don't know what you're doing. This isn't safe. I don't know if we can do this. The girls are going to get kidnapped. All of these things are basically, I don't know if I can do this. They're different versions of that. And so this is perfect. I'm doing this episode. I'm laying out all the steps that I'm very actively engaging in right now, more than I have in a while. Because when I'm at home and we're in our routine in my house with all my things, my brain chatter is pretty darn low. But everything is different right now. School is different, environment's different, language is different, currency is different, time zones are different, technology needs are different. Everything's so different. So my brain is using this as a beautiful opportunity to see if I might want to revert back into doubt and fear and worry, thoughts that create those emotions. And I'm watching it like a hawk with so much compassion. So thanks to all of these changes we're doing, my brain has had so much fun. And I would say it's been a decade, at least, since I've had this much chatter in my brain. My brain still tends to be on the anxious side if I'm stressed or struggling. But right now it's in hyperactive mode. So I'm observing it a lot. So what I've been doing is I've been doing my morning walks again, which for me works so well to create an environment where I'm alone. I'm out enjoying new things. Right now it's not nature as much as it's the city, but I'm enjoying the environment. I'm either listening to things or I'm being silent or connecting, still doing those 3 different things. And today I did a kind of a combo of all. And I'm watching my nervous system and I'm saying, thank you, nervous system, for trying to keep me safe by wanting me to go into alarm or separation triggered pursuit or frustration. Those are those primal emotions when we're facing separation. And in a way, being in a different country, different language, different currency, different, so many things, having my girls always with us, which is beautiful, but also just very different than we did it last year when they went to high school. All of those things feel like a separation from what has been. And so I'm adjusting. So for those of you in mastery, you know what I'm talking about when I say alarm, frustration, pursuit. For everyone else, join the next pivot. I'll explain it to you and we'll dive into it deeper in mastery. But I'm referring to Dr. Neufeld's attachment theory, or rather a small part of it, of his attachment theory that explains what we typically call fight or flight. We've reduced it down to those 2 words, but there's some beautiful expansion and some explanation that Dr. Neufeld's attachment theory gives us that creates so much more awareness that's more developmentally informed. So love to teach you all. Jump in there if you want to learn more about that. But anyway, my brain has been wanting to freak out and keeps going to kidnapping. That was interesting because as a kid, I remember being afraid of being kidnapped. And I'm just sitting in the awareness of what my body is doing without believing in it. And I have to keep reminding myself we're safe. We're safe. So I promise I'll do a whole episode, probably unpacking all the stuff that's been going on as we're doing this study abroad program. But if you want to jump in now or maybe hear it a little bit more in real time, because I'm not sure when I'm going to roll it all out on the podcast, the next pivot starts on October 7th, which I believe when this episode airs will just be maybe a week or 2 later. So come join me for the international version of the pivot. I'll be traveling abroad the entire time the next pivot happens. So that's going to be nuts. It's going to be really fun. I cannot wait. And we'll see all the new things that pop up. There are some changes that are happening. Nothing has been finalized at the point of this recording, but just know if you've done the pivot before, come do it again. It's going to be new and improved and better. And if you want to follow along on my 6-month international journey with my family, I'm going on a little tangent here, but if you want to follow along, I've had a lot of people ask, go to my Instagram, just at Connect Method Parenting. I'll be sharing some stuff there very soon. So, okay, back to new thoughts, which this whole episode, like I said, so timely for me because I'm learning so much about my brain right now. And new thoughts are just something I'm working with really actively in a way that I haven't had to. I haven't been forced to do it to this intense extreme for a long time. So we're all learning and unpacking this together on the podcast. And I'm so glad I get to take you along for the journey of ways I have learned to believe new things in the past and how I'm applying it right now with my parenting, with my life, with my business, as I'm teaching all of you about Connect Method Parenting, my passion to get this out. So my subconscious stories are taking advantage of this change, taking advantage of the situation and trying to revert me back to old beliefs. And so offering me thoughts like this is scary. We should overthink and catastrophize every possible worst case scenario. The kids should know better. They should be grateful. Oh gosh, I've got this whole story that happened in the German train station where my brain just wigged out. It was all about safety. It's all about togetherness. It's so fascinating. I'll jump into that in another episode, but let's stick with this new belief. So we have these beliefs that we lock in. My girls have been saying this a lot because we've been totally out of sorts. Like, I got to lock it in. I got to lock in my diet. I got to lock in my routine. I got to lock in my exercise plans, because at home they did have it locked in, but now everything's been jumbled up. And so they're looking towards what is it going to take to lock it back in. I feel that same way with my beliefs. I got to lock my beliefs back in. Not that my beliefs don't wander from time to time, but they were so locked in at home. And now I'm realizing that you switch up your life, thoughts switch up, right? And switching up our life looks like moving. It looks like a new job. It looks like a new school, new friends, new ages, hitting puberty, a divorce, a death. Like, there's so many things that can create upheaval in our routine that will allow our brains to come in and offer us some old thought. So often I get parents who will come to me after really feeling solid in their new beliefs around their kids' behavior, around their own parenting, and they'll come to me and they'll say, I am just backsliding. Why am I feeling this way all of a sudden? And if I dig in, which I always do, I dig in, there's always some pretty significant shift that's happened in their life that is creating a new reset. I think it's a new up level. Everything I'm learning right now from this situation I'm in that's new and different, it's a total up level. So when we struggle, when we feel like our brain is testing us again, trying to get us back into old thought patterns, we maybe feel a little bit more alarmed. We feel a little bit more frustrated. We feel that pursuit towards something that we want to have back that isn't there anymore. That is the way we grow. That is the way we grow, is when we are challenged. So just know, if you've had something happen, which literally can be as simple as your child turning 13 or turning whatever age, next age, and something shifts, or you move, or grandparents, go on a long vacation, or whatever it is that just switches up the environment. Don't be surprised when your nervous system tries to offer you some old beliefs. When you work through this process, even though it's offering you those old beliefs, you get to just grow. So from what I've observed and learned, getting frustrated that my brain is offering me these, what I would call lame sentences that just lead me to more frustration, more worry, more alarm, more anxiety, is that accepting them is the key. Because if we fight them or believe them, then we're getting triggered against ourselves. We're going into fight mode against ourselves. And our prefrontal cortex is not as accessible to us when we get into that mode. Last week, I was able to have some time to just be quiet and observe my thoughts. It happened while we were riding bikes, and we had this 2-hour bike ride out and then 2 hours back in. So it was 4 hours round trip. And I was able to just be very present and notice what my brain was offering. I love the work that I've done, and to see the progress that I have made over the last 16, 17 years is so encouraging. I'm not perfect by any means, but I know the process. I know what steps I need to go through. And so I was going through those steps and watching my thoughts. And some of my thoughts while I was riding the bike that I was asking myself to be aware of, I was saying, what are you thinking? What's going on? And this is scary. The girls are going to get kidnapped. My brain was catastrophizing a lot about all the worst case scenarios. I had judgmental thoughts. The kids should know better. They should be more grateful. I had thoughts about myself, judging myself. I shouldn't be doing this. I don't know how to do this. This isn't going to work. We need to just abort and go back. And I just watched. I just became very aware of what I would say, the lame sentences that were leading, if uninterrupted, leading to more frustration, not less. But once we become aware of them, they can't take us over in the same way. And I didn't want my nervous system to get frustrated about the thoughts I was having, because that would just lead to more fight, more activation against myself. I'd be triggered against myself. So I just sat there and noticed these old, well-practiced thoughts that I haven't thought in a long time that were popping up. Most of them were easy to dismiss. Some of them I could feel really strongly in my body. And I just noticed. The goal is to become more conscious no matter what's happening. The goal is to decide to notice your old thoughts on purpose and then shift into something new, something more conscious, like I can do this no matter what. I have frustration. Part of me is so mad, but part of me gets why this is happening. I have understanding for what's going on right now. I know I can do this no matter what. I'm on my way to believing something different. So find a thought you really like and then practice thinking it. To say it, you have to think it. So one of the things when I'm having a hard time keeping a new thought going is just to say it out loud. So on the bike ride, I was getting conscious with my thoughts. I was naming my emotions, and I was trying to say really clearly the new thought I wanted to have. So it looked something like this. I'd say, oh, I have frustration. So this is me becoming really aware of where I was at. Thank you, nervous system, for giving me this thought. Here's that thought again. Something terrible is going to happen. I see you, thought. Thanks, nervous system, for trying to keep me safe by thinking this thought. I don't need that anymore, but I do appreciate that you're trying to keep me safe. So do you see what I'm saying? I'm observing my thoughts just by accepting where I am. And then I could switch it into practicing a new thought, like, this is safe. I am capable. Everything is going to work out. Last week, I was talking to one of my clients. Yes, I'm still working with clients as I'm abroad. And she's going through some really hard stuff and kind of hates that she's not more productive right now and afraid about some of the potential future possibilities that might be coming her way. She's also afraid of being stuck in some pretty big emotions she's feeling. She's grieving, overwhelmed, frustrated, alarmed, lots of things, and not happy that she's there. She wants to be 12 steps ahead of herself right now. She wants to be through it. She wants to be over it. She wants to stop feeling this way. Cognitively, she realizes this isn't helping her, but she's not ready to do anything else. And I stopped her and I said, right now, I think we just need to focus on consciously grieving and being aware of all of these emotions and letting yourself feel them and experience them as much as you possibly can right now. So feel the emotions, notice the thoughts as much as you can. And when it feels like too much, just stop, right? You don't need to go any further and continue to do this dance. Say something like, there's nowhere I can be other than right here, right now. So instead of fighting against reality, which I'll lose 100% of the time, I'm going to work on accepting it. And we came up with this little phrase, which I love. It's part of the process of believing something new. For her, the thought was, right now, this is happening. And I love and 100% accept myself in this moment. And when I can do better or feel better or believe something better, I will. But for now, this is my best, and I'm going to love and accept myself in this moment. This step of accepting and loving yourself in the moment is vital. You've got to be kind to yourself. You've got to believe in yourself. And this takes practice. And part of that practice is practicing your thinking, practicing your thoughts. In order for a new thought to begin to take root and eventually create a new neural pathway, you have to feel it. You have to emotionalize the thought. If you're struggling with, let's say, nap time, homework time, or anytime you have to deal with that teenager that just gives you attitude, and you think something along the lines of, I'm dreading this, I'm dreading nap time, I'm dreading homework time, I'm dreading spending time with my teenager when he comes home, to say, I love nap time or homework time or time with my teen probably won't resonate with you at all. You may not even be able to believe in it even a little bit. So if you can't believe in it, it won't feel good. So when you say, I love homework time with my kids, you'll be like, yeah, right, I love it. So it'll end up feeling really negative. So some of the work that I do with parents is, instead of saying, I'm dreading nap time or homework time or time when my teen gets home, I take them to, I'm spending time with my child. Or even, I have a child. It doesn't feel amazing, but they can believe it. I have a child. I'm going to spend time with my child. It feels better than I'm dreading this time with my child. I'm dreading bedtime or nap time or homework time or time with my teen. So when you're coming up with these new thoughts, sometimes you have to move to a slightly better thought that's just a little bit more neutral before you can get to a really positive thought. So one of the thoughts that I was telling myself when I was waking up early in the morning before we were leaving on this trip, and I was feeling a lot of worry and anxiety, was, I love you and it's okay. And I would just say it over and over again. I love you. It's okay. I love you and it's okay. I believe that I love myself. I know that I love myself, and I believe that it's okay. It's okay to feel emotions. It's okay that I feel this way. It's okay to worry. But if that's too much still, just saying, this is happening. I have, fill in the blank with the emotion. I have this emotion right now. I can feel this emotion and not die. This emotion doesn't mean what I think it means. This emotion is just information. Something like that. This is what I'm experiencing right now. And sometimes if I'm really beating myself up over something that I've done or something I think is horrible or whatever, and my thoughts are just spinning on it, I'll say, I love you anyway. It's okay. You were doing your best. And if you could have done better, you would have. I'll just say that over and over again. I love you anyway. It's okay. You were doing your best. And if you could have done better, you would have. And just repeating that and practicing that thought, I love you. I love you. I love you. I accept you. I accept you. I accept you. So important. So when I look in the mirror, consciously thinking something like, there you are. Hi, there you are. That's what I say to myself. Every time I look in the mirror, I'm like, hey, there you are. In a really friendly voice, in a nice way, like I would greet a friend, no matter what she looked like, no matter what she was going through or how bad her hair was, or if she'd just woken up, I'd say, hey, there you are. Hi. That's how I try and talk to myself because that's how I want to think about myself. What do you want to believe about yourself? I want you to answer that question detached from parenting. Now, you may believe right now that you're not good enough or capable enough. You might believe you're defined by your mistakes. You might believe your worth is determined by your actions. But is that what you want to believe? You get to decide what you want to believe about yourself. You get to decide what you want to believe about your parenting. You get to decide what you want to believe about your children. Isn't that amazing? Nobody can tell you what to believe about those things. I have a friend who thinks she's beautiful, and people have told her, and I can't believe people say this, but people have told her, hey, do you realize you're significantly overweight? And she'll be like, how is that even relevant? She believes so deeply in her beauty that she doesn't think her weight has anything to do with it, which I love. Same thing with us with our parenting. Can we hold on to our belief that our kids are amazing, even if someone says something judgmental about their behavior? Because we know the truth. We know our kids are amazing, no matter what their behavior is showing us right now. Their behavior is information. It's completely irrelevant. Can we unlink the two together? Just like she unlinked her weight from her beauty, can we unlink behavior from our kids' amazingness or from our thoughts about our kids or our meaning we put on our kids? So think about that. All right, let's wrap this up with a few questions. Question number 1, what do you want to believe is the most important thing to you? I want you to write these down. What do you want to believe about yourself? What do you want to believe about your children? What do you want to believe about your life? And whatever you want to believe is what you must practice believing. And if you can't get there, all the way there right now, you have to build a ladder to it. You may not be able to go all the way to the end that your kids, despite their off-track behavior, are amazing. Or go all the way to, like my friend who believes her body is beautiful despite what the scale says. But we can start with believing, I have a body. We can start with believing, I have kids. Instead of I have really hard kids, just I have kids. I have a life. I have a body. I have another day. We practice believing these thoughts over and over again. And then we practice the next version and the next version. And we climb the ladder until we get to the belief we ultimately want to land on. I like to put my beliefs on Post-it notes or reminders on my phone that pop up every hour. I've written some on lipstick on my mirror. One time I've done this. My friend does it all the time and I love it. But that's kind of fun. Wherever you want to do it. Practice, practice, practice. This is so important. You've got to write down the beliefs you want to believe so you can become the next version of yourself. You got to write them down. This is like writing down your goals. They're like your belief goals. Why don't you write it down? I think sometimes we don't write them down because we don't believe we'll ever be able to believe them. That's okay. Initially, these new beliefs are going to feel kind of unbelievable. We haven't gotten there yet. We haven't achieved believing them yet. Or maybe we believed them in other situations, but we're not able to believe them in this situation. When you work on getting to the place where you believe these new beliefs with your entire heart, they're going to create new results in your life. When you believe your thoughts fully, it will create your feelings, your actions, and results. So if you believe that you can get a better job, you'll get a better job. Have you ever met someone that totally believes in something they're doing and you hear them and you think 100% they're going to get that? It's absolutely going to happen. I have a friend, shout out to Rebecca, who's been talking about this new house she's going to get for years. And she just let me know that it's happening. It's so awesome. But she has believed it so hard and she's done the work to believe it, rung by rung on the ladder. If you believe that you're going to figure out sleep time, shout out to Emily, who was on our call this past week on office hours. And she jumped on office hours and she was working through some sleep stuff. And then an hour later messaged me and did a play-by-play on how it had all gone down and how the things we had talked about on the call got her to more of a belief that aligned to her goal of who she wanted to be as she helped guide one of her kids into a better sleep pattern. And then it happened. She energetically shifted because her thought shifted, emotionally she shifted, and then it fell into place. And it may not look exactly the way you think it's going to look when you shift your beliefs, but I can guarantee you this: when you shift your beliefs, your results will change and you're going to love it, even if it wasn't what you were thinking it was going to look like. We have to start practicing new beliefs, and we need to practice the belief that's the next belief in the series of beliefs that will lead us to our ultimate big mama belief. So just the next one. So maybe your thought is, I'm going to slay bedtime. Is that what they say anymore? I don't know if they even say that anymore, but I'm going to be a person I respect during bedtime. And then that is going to set you on the trajectory of creating that reality. You're going to be calm. You're going to work on your nervous system. It's good as done. You're going to show up unconditionally loving and accepting your kids no matter what happens at bedtime. You're going to set limits if you need to. You're going to connect like crazy. If you show up and you tell me that, you're like, I'm going to do this no matter what. I'm willing to keep iterating on this until it's done. I will not quit until my nervous system cooperates. When I have a client that says that to me, I believe them. When they say, I will overcome any obstacle, it's not an option to fail. I'll keep coming to office hours. I'll ask the same question 100 times if I need to, whatever it takes to get my nervous system to finally create the new neural pathway to shift into safety around this thing. I know that their success is inevitable. Now, your thoughts are going to determine all of your choices because your thoughts determine what you do. So if we think, I believe that today I can show up on point for bedtime. Now, the belief you have can't just be strong today. It has to be strong today. We have to keep strengthening it so it'll be strong tomorrow and the next day. And we have to keep practicing believing it. And when we notice that we're waning on believing something, that's when we have to recommit to practicing it and believing it. It's just as easy for me to believe that I won't show up great at bedtime as it is for me to believe that I will show up great at bedtime. Both are easy. It's easy to slip back into not believing. It's easy to keep practicing and continuing to believe. The default for me is not to believe. So I actually shouldn't say it's just as easy. It's a little bit harder to believe, but it's worth that little extra effort. It's worth it for me to believe that I can achieve this goal of showing up at bedtime the way I want to. And when I believe that, I take a very different level of action than when I don't believe it. And then I prove it true and I say, ha, see, I was right. Or if I don't take action, I'll say, oh, well, that's really fascinating too. And I observe it. And then I recommit to believing and practicing again. So what do you believe now? What do you want to believe? And are you willing to practice that new belief? Here's some ways that I suggest you practice new beliefs. First of all, give yourself some time every single day to practice thinking. Cleaning out your brain and practicing thinking new thoughts needs to be part of your new routine if you're not already doing that. No matter what's happening, taking time to practice believing these new thoughts, thinking these new thoughts, saying these new thoughts, reading these new thoughts, going to make such a difference. So if you're working on, I can show up calm and connected at bedtime, practice that. Set aside time every day, practice that thought. If my focus is believing, hey, I love and accept you no matter what you're doing, whether that's directed towards my child or directed towards me if I'm beating myself up really hard. Or I was telling you the story of one of my clients is going through a really hard time. So practicing for her believing, I love and accept myself exactly where I am. And when I'm ready to make a different choice or feel something different, I will. But for now, this is good enough. We have to practice the thoughts that we want to believe. That is how we create new neural pathways. Some of my favorite thoughts that I practice are, I have plenty of time. I'm smart enough. I have the ability to do whatever I want. What I have to give my kids is needed and wanted and is enough. Connection, not correction, is the answer. A calm nervous system equals a smart brain. My kids don't need to learn a lesson. They need to feel their emotions. I have the support and the direction I need It's my responsibility and within my capacity to be successful and achieve my goals. So those are just a few of the thoughts. You could start a list and then practice them every day. Practice them again and again and again. I think those thoughts. I believe those thoughts on purpose. I say those thoughts out loud. I practice them again. My brain would prefer to go to, I don't know if I can do this. This is hard. My girls are going to get abducted. We've never done this before. Who do you think you are? Look at that. That didn't work. That's where my brain wants to go if it's left to its own devices. Why can't it naturally go to the happy place? I don't know. And it's not a problem. What I do know is that when I'm practicing my beliefs that I'm smart enough, when I'm practicing my beliefs that I'm capable, when I'm practicing beliefs that drop me into more awareness, such as this is happening and it's okay, or I'm feeling this emotion right now, or I have this emotion, those become my new default. So I practice those thoughts over and over and over again. I read my thoughts over and over again because I need to tell my brain what to focus on. I need to tell it what to believe. The way I teach my brain to believe something new is by repeating it over and over and over again and emotionalizing that experience of repeating it over and over again. For me, the easiest way to do this is to be listening to music that is in alignment with the emotion I want to feel. That's my shortcut way. Now, if you're willing to spend at least 30 minutes practicing believing these new thoughts, your life will change so fast, you won't even know it hit you. But here's the thing. Most of us don't do that. If our thoughts create a result, why don't we spend more time managing our minds? I asked someone in office hours and she said because she didn't believe it would work. And I said, well, that's funny, isn't it? The only way to do something is if you believe it will work. And she said, well, I think it will work for other people. I just don't think it will work for me. And again, I'm going to say the only way to believe it'll work is to practice believing it will work and then do it and then take massive action. But in order to take the massive action, you have to believe that the massive action is actually going to create the results you want. And in order to believe the massive action will get you what you want, you have to practice believing the thought that will create the emotions, that will drive the actions, that will ultimately create the results. So you have to commit to the thought. I am going to believe this new thought, period. I'm not going to entertain other thoughts that counter it. If they come up, I'll observe, let them go. I'm going to direct my mind to believing new things. And you may be listening to this and thinking, really, 30 minutes a day? I don't know if I have time. It sounds really hard, but I believe you can do it. And when I believe that you can do it, that makes me feel amazing. And I make an effort to help you. If you're in league, I'm there rooting you on. You see me. If you're listening to this, know that even though I don't see you in league, I'm rooting you on. I will not agree with you that you can't change your belief, because if I do, nothing will change. So what I want you guys to do is write down what you currently believe, and then write down what you want to believe. And then make yourself a list of thoughts you want to practice believing. And then I challenge you to practice thinking them for 30 days. And if your life doesn't change, email me. We'll talk. But I believe if you commit to 30 days and your life doesn't change drastically, you're not doing it right. You're not practicing it right. Because there's no way your life doesn't change if you commit to changing how you think. Okay, guys, go do the 3 steps, commit to doing this for 30 days, and watch your life drastically change. I love that we had this conversation today. It was so timely. I'm going through this exact process right now with my own thoughts. And if you're liking the podcast, I would love it if you'd leave a quick review. That's how the platforms decide how they recommend different podcasts to people. And my goal is to get Connect Method Parenting out to as many parents as possible. All right, you all, I'm off to spend the evening with my family. We'll talk to you all very soon. And if you're listening to this live, go check out cmp.works/pivot. The link's in the show notes to apply for the next pivot, which starts October 7th, which is not very far away. And if you're listening to this and October has passed, go check out the website, connectmethodparenting.com, to find out when we're offering the next pivot. All right, you all, I hope to see you in our final pivot of the year. Go connect your face off with your kids. See y'all later. Bye. If you enjoyed this episode, you're going to want to check out the 8-week parenting pivot, which is the first phase of my program, the League of Extraordinarily Connected Parents. We're opening up a new round in October. So if you're listening to this live, it's going to be October 7th. If you're listening to this and that date has passed, go check out the website, connectmethodparenting.com, and we'll list the next time we're opening. But if you're listening to this live, go check it out because you can already apply and get accepted into the next round. So that you can lock yourself in place to have a huge shift with your kids, to get them to want to listen to you, which is very different than using punishments, rewards, timeouts, ultimatums to get them to listen to you. We want it to be more cooperative. We want better listening. We want a great relationship, and we want to have a ton of fun when we're parenting. So if that's what you want, if what I talked about in this episode resonated, jump over to cmp.works/pivot. I'll put the link in the show notes as well, and find out more about the pivot, apply to join, and we'll let you know if you get in. All right. Until next time, go connect with your kids, have a blast, and pop back in for another episode soon about how to use connection, not correction, to get your kids to want to listen to you. See you later. Bye.